Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall. I'm delighted as always to be joined by Danny, and we're here reacting to what we've just seen in the main event of Ring 3 from New York as HAMZAH SHEERAZ has sensationally knocked out Edgar Berlanga in his super middleweight debut. Yeah, extraordinary fashion, round 5 finish, and he's done something that Canelo Alvarez couldn't do. So, yeah, big statements from the Brit. In New York City, yeah, his debut in the super middleweight division. So, yeah, Danny, let's jump straight into it. Explosive finish. What was your thoughts on that performance, the result, and I suppose how it compared to what you expected coming into the fight?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth now. It's a massive statement to the super middleweight division to do that to Edgar Berlanga, with consensus by top five, maybe top 10 at absolute worst super middleweight. To do that to him is sends out a real message to the rest of the division. I thought Shiraz would win the fight. I thought he would win on points, maybe a late stoppage. I did not envisage him blowing away Berlanga like that early on. I thought the fight was fairly close up until that point, to be honest. I thought the first round was a bit of a nothing round. You could have had that either way. I did give Shiraz all the rounds, but not by a great deal. But the difference was, the effect that his punches had on Berlanga, who obviously heavy-handed himself. But I mean, if you stand in front of HAMZAH Shiraz, you're in a world of trouble. If you stand there stationary like Berlanga was, and yeah, the fight was clearly over after the fourth round. As we said off camera, I'm not too sure why they bothered sending him back out. Obviously, the referee was swift to jump in after that knockdown in the fifth round, and yeah, Shiraz, you would fancy will go to from strength to strength up at super middleweight. It looks the right weight for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Even though my camera was acting up there, but we're back now. Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible performance. I did, to be honest. I picked Hamza Sheeraz to stop Edgar Berlanga in this one, but still, it's still a stunning statement. I didn't expect it to be that early. I really didn't. Yeah, I just thought, and Edgar Berlanga impressed me there, to be honest with you. He might not have won a lot of the rounds, but I was impressed with kind of maybe his discipline that we didn't kind of see in previous fights. His patience, sign of a maturing fighter. And even before the stoppage, he took some big shots. Before he went, which was, and even getting back up from the couple of shots at the end of round 4 showed huge heart and huge courage. But yeah, incredible statement, incredible performance from Hamza Sheeraz. And we were saying off camera, it was an anomaly how he ever made 160. I think that this will be his physical peak now, which I think is only gonna bode well for him. I've always been a big fan of Hamza Sheeraz, technically, size wise, his combination punching and his power, and most importantly, his mentality. I'm seriously impressed with how screwed on he is. He has his head screwed on to his shoulders, which is, I think, a big attribute of his. But yeah, the future is bright for Edgar Berlanga. Yeah, so just before we finish, talking about his peak being now at 168. What do you think is kind of is next for Edgar Berlanga? Who would you like to see him in with next? Assuming it's not going to be Canelo, as Canelo has the Crawford fight coming up, but there is good names. Diego Pacheco fights next weekend. You've got Iglesias. There is some interesting names. Who would you kind of put him in with next before a potential Canelo fight?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and hopefully we'll come on to the Canelo fight. I can't imagine they're going to go too risky when you've got, a mega fight against the likes of Canelo, potentially in the offing. Chris Eubank Jr. is a name that's been floated. I can't imagine he'd be particularly keen on that fight. I think you'd have to pay him a substantial amount of money. You mentioned Diego Pacheco again. Is he ready for Hamza Shiraz? I'm not too sure. Diego Pacheco, been impressive, improving as rising through the levels, but it will be a big step up from him. The thing is, super middleweight, there's not too many of the names that like. I'm sure they would maybe like to give him a few more rounds at the weight, but I'm not sure there's too many fighters I would back to give super middleweight version of Hamza Shiraz too many rounds at this stage. So I'm not too sure. Eubank would be a good one from a domestic point of view. Christian and Billy, again, he's high up in the rankings. He'll maybe fancy his chances of securing that Canelo fight, although Turki Al-Sheikh seems to, favour Shiraz in that regard. So I would like to see the Billy fight, actually stylistically, although I'm not sure it's one I think will happen.
Yeah, and Billy, a name that I didn't mention there. Yeah, that's another fascinating option, to be honest with you. Yeah, as you said, it could be a case of, while they're waiting on the Canelo fight, quote unquote soft touch, to just keep them taking over. But Edgar Berlanga is definitely not a soft introduction to the super middleweight division, no matter what
Nope.
you say about him. And Sheeraz, yeah, blitzed him, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I think, to be honest, as you say, I don't think there's anybody else that beats him at 168. But yeah, let's wrap up with the Canelo fight. Let's say Canelo beats Terence Crawford, and it is Hamza Sheeraz next. This version of Canelo against this version of Hamza Sheeraz. Who you backing in that?
I think I think Shearer's would knock him out as the years go on for Canelo, and it feels stupid. Feels like it's something I never thought I'd be saying that I would pick someone to stop Canelo. Obviously, he took Golovkin's best shots or close to them. Never really been hurt in as a super middleweight or middleweight. But Father Time waits for no man, and if he does get past Terence Crawford, which up in the air. It's getting close to a 50-50 fight in most people's eyes. Hamza Shiraz is a different prospect entirely. And I know Canelo's sort of signed up to this, was it a four-fight deal with Riyadh season? So obviously he's going to have some obligations there, but he's going to take a bit of persuading to fight Hamza Shiraz. If you were concerned about David Benavidez, you'll be concerned about Hamza Sheeraz. I think he's got bigger one punch power. I think he'll be able to hit Canelo from so far from out of the range where Canelo will be able to land on him. And if it was the Canelo that fought Skull, the sort of lack of head movement, the slow feet, it'd be a bit of a sitting duck for Sheeraz for that version of Sheeraz. I think it's a good fight stylistically for Hamza. As I said, Canelo continuing to go down the back nine, and if that fight happened, say this time next year, I'm backing Hamza Sheeraz to knock him out.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad that you agree and that you think the same. I just think it's a case of, getting Canelo at the absolute perfect time. It'll be, of course, we still have to see how Canelo looks against Terence Crawford. But Canelo has undoubtedly slowed down massively, understandably. And Terence Crawford will be a different prospect than a huge Hamza Sheeraz, big punch and Hamza Sheeraz at 168. So yeah, I think you'd get him at a perfect time if the fight was to happen, and I do think you'd stop him as well. I think it'd be a real star-making, passing of the torch performance from Hamza Sheeraz. So hopefully we do get to see it because Hamza Sheeraz is a real problem for anybody at super middleweight now, and I just cannot wait for the future. I'm firmly on the Hamza Sheeraz train, especially now after that performance at one. We needed that too after the Adames kind of
Definitely.
performance left a sour taste in people's mouth. I know he was injured, but he needed to remind people what he was all about. And yeah, he's definitely done it. But yeah, that's all we have time for on this one. Myself and Danny reacting to what we've just seen from New York as Hamza Sheeraz has sensationally stopped Edgar Berlanga doing something Canelo Alvarez couldn't do in the fifth round. A really emphatic killer instinct performance from Shiraz to get Berlanga out of there. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. What did you make of that performance? And what do you think the future will be for Shiraz? Who would you like to see him fight next? And can he ultimately dethrone Canelo Alvarez at some stage in the future? So yeah, get involved down below in the comments. Drop a like on this video first of all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing and follow us on all social media. Danny, it was a pleasure and take care.
Cheers, mate.